I took the class in the last session on section 100, which provides for a second appeal. Of course, I finished my lecture on that topic. However, a friend asked me, what is substantial question of law? He asked a doubt, what is that substantial question of law? Of course, it is a very good question. I have to clarify it, because substantial question of law is the question of law on which the High Court entertains an appeal for the second time after the disposal of a case by the first appellate court. Therefore, when it comes for second appeal before the High Court, what are the ingredients on which the High Court will entertain that second appeal? Suppose if those ingredients are not there, the High Court will not entertain second appeal. There's a bar. The High Court will not have jurisdiction at all unless you show substantial question of law, or unless the High Court formulates in writing the question raised by the party, and that too it is decided as substantial question of law. What is substantial question of law? Substantial question of law is not defined in section 100 or anywhere in CPC. But a substantial question of law has to be deducted only from the interpretation given by the courts in India, High Courts and also Supreme Court. It has been interpreted. What substantial question of law? It has to be understood. What substantial question of law? This substantial question of law is nothing but certain principles of law. And if the courts below, either the appellate court or the trial court, commits a mistake in the application of a law, and the High Court finds that this law has not been properly decided, or if the case has not been properly decided in accordance with the legal principles that are supposed to be applicable, and the case is not decided in accordance with that principle which is applicable, then it can be raised as a substantial question of law before the High Court in the second appeal. Therefore, say for example, if there is a principle by which it is held by the High Court as well as Supreme Court that second appeal cannot be entertained if the judgment is of concurrent in nature. If both courts below have rendered a concurrent finding and the suit either dismissed or decreed, against which second appeal will not be entertained, because it is not a court which deals with question of facts. Therefore, once facts are decided finally by both courts below, it is called concurrent finding of both the courts below. In cases where the judgment has been rendered concurrently, or the first appellate court concurring with the decree of the trial court rendered a verdict, against that verdict, nobody can take a second appeal before the High Court. There's a bar. But here, in respect of concurrent findings also, the court will interfere in certain circumstances. Therefore, for example, if the first appellate court did not deal with the facts properly, or a wrong law has been applied, and a verdict has been rendered against the certain principles, legal principles, then that can be taken as a question of law. That is called substantial question of law before the Honorable High Court. Therefore, the certain principle has to be followed. Concurrent finding, the court will not entertain. But even in cases where there are concurrent findings, the Honorable High Court will entertain the appeal in case you are able to show that there is violation of substantial question of law, or there is a substantial question of law. Take for example, if the appellate court as well as the trial court renders a finding without any evidence, it is called a perverse judgment. A perverted judgment is a judgment which does not rely upon or which does not base upon evidence. If there is no evidence at all, and if the court gives a finding as if there is evidence, then it is a perverse judgment. In cases where there is no evidence and a judgment is rendered without any evidence and comes to the conclusion of a fact without any evidence, it is called a perverse finding. In those cases, even if the both courts have rendered concurrent finding with regard to facts, the High Court will entertain an appeal. That is called second appeal. Therefore, here also we can raise a substantial question of law, saying that whether the courts below are right in rendering a judgment without any evidence. If without any evidence, any judgment is rendered with regard to facts, the High Court will entertain. Therefore, it is a substantial question of law. Likewise, even if there is evidence, but the court does not look into it and also pass a judgment or deliver a judgment in accordance with those evidences, this is also give rise to a substantial question of law. Though the court has ample evidence while dealing with a case, and the court does not pay any attention to those evidences or doesn't refer to those evidences while dealing with the case and also rendering a judgment without reference to those evidences, this is also a flaw in the disposal of the case or in the decision rendered by the court. One can file a second appeal saying that there is a substantial question of law in that even when evidences were available, the court has rendered a finding without reference to those evidences. If those evidences are considered, the decision rendered by the court would have been otherwise. Therefore, there is a material difference between the decision if that evidences are taken into account. And if the evidences are not taken into account, therefore it will vary the decision if such a evidence is taken into account. Therefore, in those cases, one can file a second appeal saying that there is a substantial question of law in that the principle, which I just now stated, has not been followed at all. And likewise, is the case law decided on this subject is 2002 5 CTC 517. And also there is a landmark case decided by the Supreme Court and reported in 2003 4 SEC 161. And one example is, suppose a commissioner is appointed in the trial court and the commissioner submits a report and the court below or the trial court does not refer to the commissioner's report and passes a verdict without any reference to the commissioner's report. But had the trial court referred to the commissioner's report, the verdict would have been otherwise different. Therefore, in such a case, such of those instances, the High Court can entertain or will entertain such a second appeal when these flaw is pointed out, saying that an important or a material evidence or a material document which is in its custody by way of a report submitted by the commissioner has not been considered at all. Therefore, the question will be whether the judgment rendered by the trial court and also confirmed by the appellate court without reference to the commissioner's report is valid in law, is sustainable in law. This is a question. Likewise, the question will be drafted or formulated. And if there is material evidence before the lower court, say for example the trial court, and this material evidence is not considered at all, then the appellate court at the stage of second appeal will interfere with that judgment and hold that it is invalid. It is reported in 2013 5 SEC 218. And certain principles I have called out is concurrent finding on facts, no substantial question of law. Therefore, the High Court will not any second appeal in cases where there are concurrent findings both by the trial court and also the appellate court. And if perverse finding or if perverse, that means if the judgment by both courts below are based on no evidence, it is called a perverse finding. In cases where the findings are pointed out to be perverse, the High Court will entertain second appeal under section 100 of CPC. There is substantial question of law. Likewise, if there is evidence, and these evidences are not considered, here also there is a breach of some legal principles, by reason of which the second appeal can be entertained by the High Court. And also, one more rider is, if on the facts and circumstances of this case, and also the evidence available before the court, no reasonable person could have arrived at that conclusion on the basis of those evidence. Therefore, if a decision is rendered by a court, which no reasonable person will take in the facts and circumstances case, in those cases also second appeal is allowed. That can be entertained. But on the contrary, if on the question of facts, two views are possible. Take for example, appellate court is confronted with two views, or entertains two views, and also it is possible that there is two views that can be taken about the facts, or also evidence that is placed before the appellate court. If two views are possible, and the appellate court will support or will uphold only the view that is taken by the trial court. Likewise, in the second appeal also, only that view which has been taken or which has been taken by the first appellate court will be upheld. Therefore, if two views are possible, as far as question of fact is concerned, the High Court will support or uphold only that view which has been taken by the first appellate court. Therefore, if two views are possible, the High Court will not substitute its alternative view in the place of the view already taken by the first appellate court. And interpretation of documents. So, for example, if a question of title depends upon the interpretation of a document, the trial court interpret in a way, the first appellate court interprets in a way. Suppose if the interpretation is not proper, if the High Court finds that the interpretation could have been otherwise, or no person would have taken that interpretation and rendered a verdict on the basis of that interpretation. If that interpretation is wrong, the High Court can always interpret it in its own way, and also comes to a conclusion in the second appeal. Therefore, if interpretation is wrong, if interpretation is not valid in the eye of law, you can raise a substantial question of law on the question of interpretation of a title. Therefore, if one interpretation is taken, it will end in favor of one party. If another interpretation is taken, the other party will get the benefit. Therefore, in cases where the interpretation will decide the right of the parties, and if one interpretation is taken, one party will be denied the benefit, and if another interpretation is taken, another party will get benefit. In those cases, the High Court in second appeal will take a right interpretation. We have to admit that whenever the High Court renders a verdict saying that this interpretation alone is correct, as far as High Court is concerned, it is final. Therefore, if the title of a person with regard to a property depends upon interpretation of a document, then if the interpretation is not in order, or not valid, or not sustainable in the eye of law, then you can raise that point as a substantial question of law before the High Court, and the High Court will entertain that question of law. Likewise, if a will is interpreted otherwise, the interpretation of a will is also is taken to be a substantial ground, or a substantial question of law. If the will is not interpreted properly, it can be taken as a substantial question of law before the High Court. And likewise, this will, with regard to the interpretation of will, there is a case reported in 2011 6 CTC 172, and non-consideration of patta. Suppose for establishing possession, the plaintiff suppose files a patta, patta is evidence of possession. And if this patta is not taken into account at all, then it is non-consideration of a material evidence placed by the plaintiff or otherwise even by the defendant to establish their possession. Therefore, when a patta or a document like patta is filed, and if the court renders a verdict in favor of either party without reference to the patta, it can lead to a breach of question of law, or it can lead to a question of law. And such a question can be taken in the High Court as substantial question of law. Therefore, non-consideration of material evidence will result in a breach of law, and for reason of which a substantial question of law can be raised before the High Court. Therefore, substantial question of law is nothing but a breach of a law or a verdict rendered without considering the question of law that is involved in the case rightly. If the question of law is not considered rightly, then it will give rise to a ground for filing second appeal. Now we will come to the next important section is, or the related section is section 113, which deals with the reference. What is the reference? The reference is nothing but a reference made by a lower court to the High Court. If in a pending case, the court, while dealing with a case, comes to a dilemma as to the validity of any act, ordinance, or regulation, or of any provision contained in an act, and such the validity, there's a question, or involves a question as to the validity of the act, that poses a question. In those cases, the determination is also necessary. Whether that act is valid or invalid, that has to be decided by that court before rendering a verdict, or before deciding the case. That question has to be resolved. Unless the validity of that act or regulation or the ordinance is not resolved, he cannot render a right judgment. But in the opinion of the court, which deals with the case, it is invalid. The act is invalid. But the court has no power to invalidate that act. Therefore, the lower court cannot ignore the act also. The lower court has to, or the lower courts are supposed to follow the act. They cannot deviate from the act. They have to comply with the requirement of the act. Therefore, they have to render a verdict only in accordance with the provisions of the act. Therefore, the dilemma is, if the court finds that such of those acts or regulations and ordinances are invalid, they cannot render a right verdict according to their conscience. Therefore, they will formulate the question and the reason for entertaining such doubt, and send a note, or send the case, or send the matter to the High Court, seeking its opinion on that question. Therefore, they have to thoroughly study the act or the reason for such invalidity. Therefore, unless they are 100% certain that the question of invalidity is consciously it is not valid, then in those cases they can refer the matter to the High Court for its opinion. The High Court will deal with that question and deal with the opinion and renders a verdict, whether saying that it is valid or invalid. In accordance with that opinion, the court will decide the case before it. Therefore, in cases which is pending before a court, or only in the circumstances wherein a case is pending before the court and the court comes to the conclusion that the act involved in that case is questionable or is not valid, in those cases they can refer it. But for hypothetical questions, they cannot refer. Only when they are confronted with a dilemma that the particular act which is supposed to be applicable is not valid, then alone, if a case is, only when a case is pending, not as a hypothetical question it can ask. And one more condition is, if the opinion or if the question that arose in the mind of the judge is already resolved by an authority of court. That means authority means a case law already reported by the decided and reported in respect of a case by the High Court and also by the Supreme Court. If there is an authority on that point, then it has to follow that authority, not by way of seeking a reference. Therefore, they have to be very careful before asking for a reference. The relevant decision rendered on this subject is 1997 2 CTC 97 and also AR 2003 Supreme Court 3028. And one more case is 2003 3 CTC 238. These are all important cases dealing with this topic. And this reference has to be read along with Order 46, Rule 1 to 3 of CPC. This section, in order to understand it properly, you have to read along with it Order 46, 1 to 3. 46, 1 to 3 of CPC. And it is a case law on this topic or in this context is reported in AR 1999, Supreme Court 2874. Then we'll come to the topic review. Review is provided under section 114 of CPC. Review. What is review? Suppose any person considering himself to be aggrieved by a decree or order from which an appeal is allowed by this code, but from which no appeal has been preferred, and by a decree or order from which no appeal is allowed by this code, and also by a decision on a reference from a court of small causes, may apply for review of the judgment to the court which passed the decree or order. But here you have to understand that an order or a decree has been passed by a court for which appeal is provided. But the party aggrieved has not filed any appeal. He is also eligible to apply for review in the very same court which passed the decree or the order. Likewise, if any decree or order passed by a court and against which no appeal is provided for in the court, then also a person can approach the very same court for review, seeking review. Likewise, if any order is passed by the small cause court and if any question of law arises, then also they can file a review. These three instances given in section 114 of CPC. But the major provision relates to these two circumstances. One is appeal decree passed and by decree or order passed, no appeal is provided, and order decree passed, but provision for appeal is there, but the party aggrieved has not approached the appellate court for redressal. In those cases, they can always file a review. This review could be filed within 30 days. And this review under section 114 has to be read along with order 47. Order 47 also deals with the very same topic, that is a review, but it gives more grounds or what are the circumstances under which a review could be filed, an application for review could be filed. Now, a court which is exercising power under the Tamil Nadu Buildings Act 1960 in respect of orders passed by the Rent Control Court under the provisions of Tamil Nadu Buildings Lease and Rent Control Act 1960 is also concerned, one can file a review if they are aggrieved by the order passed by the rent controller or appellate court. Rent rent controller or appellate court. Appellate court rent control can also entertain application for review, because the the rent control court is governed by the provisions of CPC also while dealing with cases for eviction filed before it. In cases rendered by rent controller and also appellate authority can be a subject matter of a review. And here also one rider, a failure to consider an important provision of law materially affecting the result of a suit would be an error on the face of the record. But here, one condition. But if the order, one is aggrieved only when the court passes an order without considering an important provision of law, and ultimately it has resulted in a injustice. In those cases, if ignoring the principles of law or a question of law that is involved, like in this case, and an order has been passed resulting in material injury to a particular party, one can invoke the jurisdiction of court for review under section 114. And order 47 deals with one or two circumstances more or in addition. That is, who from the discovery of new and important matter or evidence which after the exercise of due diligence was not within his knowledge. Suppose when the court was dealing with the case, either in the trial court or the first appellate court or before the court, if they are not having that evidence or the particular matter in their custody or in their knowledge, and after the exercise of due diligence, it was not available with them, and afterwards, after the order has been passed, it has come to their knowledge, then they can approach the court saying that during the pendency of the case or when the case was considered, I was not having this particular document or I was not having this particular fact in my knowledge. Now I came to understand that there is a material fact available by way of an evidence. Kindly allow me to file a review. In those applications, the court will entertain. If it is beyond their control, if it is not within their custody at the time when the case was not heard, then the court will allow the review application. But this is one ground given under order 47. And also other ingredients are, if the order passed is the result of a mistaken understanding of law, a mistaken application of law, or an error apparent on the face of the record. Therefore, in these two cases also, instances also, the review is entertainable by the very same court. Here, the review is based upon a mistake that is committed while disposing of a case, or an error apparent on the face of the record can be ascertained even by mere reading it. Even by reading an order, if one can very easily find out that there is an error apparent on the face of the record, then also we can approach the court for review seeking relief. The court will entertain. And also for any other sufficient reason, desires to obtain a review of the decree, one can. Suppose if it is valid, that he is really aggrieved, and if he states those reasons, why this order could not be sustainable, why this order has to be reviewed, then for special reasons also, and if this reason is acceptable to the court will entertain. And here, one more instance is, a party who is not appealing from a decree or order may apply for a review of judgment, notwithstanding the pendency of an appeal by some other party. Suppose, for example, a plaintiff has filed a suit against two defendants, defendants 1 and 2. And say, for example, the suit is decreed in favor of the plaintiff. There are two defendants. Here, both the defendants can file an appeal against that decree. Likewise, any one of the defendants can also file an appeal. The other defendant need not. It is not compulsory. Suppose if the D1, say for example, D1, defendant 1 files an appeal. But in the appeal, invariably, the D2, the second defendant will be a respondent along with the plaintiff. In the appeal filed by D1 in a suit decreed in favor of the plaintiff, definitely one defendant while filing the appeal has to implead not only the plaintiff as a respondent, but also the second defendant who did not opt for appeal as the second respondent. Therefore, the plaintiff as well as the second defendant will be respondents in the appeal. Here, only D1, the defendant 1 has chosen to file the appeal. Here, the second defendant cannot file a review. The second defendant can file a review unless the point taken by the second defendant in the review is is similar to the one raised by the appellant, that is D1. So therefore, the grounds of review taken by the defendant should not be similar to the grounds taken by D1 in the appeal. If it is different, then he can always file a review. But in one more circumstance, the D2 as respondent number 2 in the appeal, because he is a compulsorily a party there. If he is a party and he has not filed a review, he can urge the grounds of his review, which he has not filed, then in the very same appeal as a defense. He can urge. It is not as if his right of questioning that judgment is lost. He can always, as respondent 2, though he has not filed an appeal, though he is not has not filed a review application, he can always urge the point which he could have taken as grounds of review in a review application before the first appellate court in the appeal court. Therefore, the second respondent is also entitled to ask for a review of the judgment under this section, that is section 114 subsection 2. Therefore, D2 and R2 can urge the grounds, as R2 can urge the grounds of review before the appellate court. And suppose if before filing the review application, the other appeal is disposed of, then later that review cannot be filed. One has to abide by the judgment rendered by the appellate court. Therefore, this review can be entertained by the court which passed the decree till the appeal is disposed of. If the appeal is disposed of, then it has become final. The next question is, one more explanation has been given. Suppose if a judgment is given by the court based upon a decision rendered by a superior court, and if the decision is reversed, if a case law or a decision reported or a decision rendered by a superior court, which has been followed by a court below in another case, is reversed, then on that ground, the person who is aggrieved by the order cannot file a review. You kindly understand this point. It is very, very minutely. It's a very complicated question. Suppose a judgment is rendered by a court, say for example, trial court, following a decision rendered by the High Court, Honorable High Court. And if that decision is later on reversed in another case, then citing that instance of overruling in an application for review cannot be taken as a ground for review in the other case. Therefore, one has to file only appeal only. If the decision is reversed by a superior court in another case, though it cannot be a ground for review in the other case, but it can be taken as a ground for appeal. In the appeal, that point can be raised and also that can be canvassed. But the prohibition is that reversal of that decree on which the present judgment is based cannot be a ground for reviewing the present judgment. Therefore, it is given in explanation appended to section 114. Scope of review is discussed in a case reported in 1995, 1 SCC 170. Then here also there are certain restrictions on the scope of review. Suppose a second appeal is decided by a particular judge, second appeal, that has become final. Here, a review application is filed by one of the aggrieved person. But before this review application can be taken up for hearing, the judge who decided the second appeal is not available for any reason, is not available. Therefore, the second appeal with the application for review is posted before some other judge. There in the earlier decision rendered by the previous judge, he interprets a document saying that it is a bill and proceeded to deliver the judgment on the basis that the particular document, which is the subject matter of that case or which is a crucial document in that case, is a will. Now, after the verdict or after the judgment delivered by the previous judge, a review application is filed, and in the review application, since the first judge is not available, another judge has come to entertain that application. But while dealing with that application, the judge comes to the conclusion that the crucial document, which is held to be a will, is not a will at all. It is just only a settlement. But by holding that it is the particular document is only a settlement, it completely upsets the decree. Therefore, the decree or the judgment was rendered in favor of one party, but by reason of the reversal or by reason of a different interpretation in respect of the document, the other person is going to get the benefit of the order. Therefore, it clinches the case either in respect of one party or in respect of another party by reason of the interpretation. When there is two interpretation possible, the judge who deals with that review could not render a verdict saying that, though no, it is another document, not the document which is already held to be so. Therefore, it is the Supreme Court held that the judge has traveled beyond the scope of review. He has exceeded his jurisdiction. Therefore, that the excess of jurisdiction resulting in miscarriage of justice has to be struck down. That such an order has been struck down, saying that it is not within the scope of the power of the judge to review. Though second view is possible, if another view is also possible. Therefore, this is one rider on the power of a judge to deal with a review application. That is reported in AR 1987, Supreme Court 1160. Therefore, with regard to construction of a document, once it is made final, it cannot be reviewed, saying that it is another document or it is a different document. Then subsequent events, if any order or a decree is passed, or even during the appellate stage, some development has taken place, by reason of which the decree or order already rendered becomes ineffective, or even it is not only obsolete also. That decree will remain only on paper unless it is amended or unless it is reviewed. In those cases, the court will come to the rescue of a person who alleges that after the order has been passed or after the decree has been passed, this development has taken place or change of circumstances has taken place. As a result, the order and the decree or any other order that has been passed has become ineffective, and it has become obsolete also. Obsolete means it has become extinct. Therefore, in such of those cases, the court will entertain a review application and renders an order or gives an order in taking into account the change of circumstances or the recent development. Therefore, the court will always render an effective order or an effective decree, so that the person who succeeds in a case will get the fruit of that order. It is not the intention of the court to deny the fruit of the order, though it has been passed in favor of a particular person. Therefore, if that particular person or a decree holder or an order who it is given in favor of a person who complains that because of the change of circumstances, this decree has become obsolete, outdated, or even ineffective, they can always approach the court for a review and get an order which is effective, that the court will always correct this decree or reshape the order. That is the word. The court will reshape the order in such a way that the order in whose favor that is passed, the party will get the benefit of it. Therefore, that is the subsequent event. But that is a case law is there. 2003-7 SEC 219. This is one case, and also 2009 4 SEC 663 and AR 1970 Supreme Court 1273, and in AR 1970 Supreme Court 1273, the Supreme Court held that the power of review is not an inherent power. This power is not invested with the court inherently. Because it rendered a verdict, it can always review. By an inherent power, it is a fallacious assumption, or it is a fallacy. Therefore, the Supreme Court held that power of review has to be conferred by a statute. Or if the power is not conferred by a statute on the court, which renders a verdict, then the court cannot, unless that power is conferred, cannot entertain an application for review. Therefore, it has to be conferred by way of a statute. Otherwise, there is no inherent power at all for reviewing an order passed by the very same court. One has to approach the appellate court if they are really aggrieved. And in case, as I have already said, that in case that there is an error apparent on the face of the record, that is also a ground for urging before the court for review. And there is also some difference between an erroneous assumption and also a error apparent on the face of the record. Erroneous order. But erroneous order cannot be taken up in review. But on the contrary, error apparent on the face of the record can be corrected by review. Therefore, you have to understand the difference. Suppose if a judgment is passed, and I already stated, a review petition and also appeal filed, and the appeal disposed of, then the court will not entertain an application for review. I already said that case is reported in AR 1964 Supreme Court 1372. And in the name of a review, one cannot argue the case, re-argue the case. It is not an appeal in disguise. Review is not an appeal in disguise. Therefore, there are certain restrictions. And also there are certain limits, parameters, within which alone one can urge the points or urge their point of view before the reviewing court. The reviewing court also cannot go beyond what is permitted. Therefore, they cannot go beyond and grant orders, even exceeding the order, by exceeding the scope of the order which has already been given. And there may be a case where the advocates who are representing a party argue the case for avails as if it is an original case. But in a review application, if a person argues, the court will not allow an advocate or a party to argue the case or re-argue the case once over again. Because by such argument, already an order has been passed. But in the name of review, the court will not entertain a re-argument of the case and also reverse its own order. If there is a point for re-argument, an extensive argument, the court will then dispose of the review or close the review saying, yes, you file an appeal. The court will not entertain. If there is necessity for a re-argument, then it is only a matter for appeal, then only appeal has to be filed. Therefore, re-argument will not be allowed. And as I already said, that application for review has to be filed within 30 days. And once review application is dismissed, no second review will be allowed. We cannot raise the very same point in another review application and file it. Or even for different reasons or for different grounds, no second review will be allowed once it is dismissed. And as I already stated, this erroneous decision, appeal alone is the remedy. Erroneous decision, or for a wrong decision, appeal alone is the remedy. But error apparent on the face of the record, review can be filed. And subsection 7 of section 114 is dealing with a particular proposition of law. An order rejecting the review application shall not be appealable. You have to take into account an order rejecting the review application shall not be appealable. And another distinction is an order allowing review is appealable. So you have to see the difference. In cases where an order has been passed rejecting the review application, against that order, it is not appealable. One has to file a revision or any other remedy. But if an order is given allowing the review, then it is appealable. One has to file an appeal. There's a difference. And you kindly take note of it. Suppose if an order is passed in the review application and the appeal is pending, and in that appeal, these orders, though no appeal is allowed or no appeal is filed, then that point can be once over again agitated before the appellate court, wherein the main judgment is under appeal. Therefore, it is not as if they lost their chance. The person who is aggrieved by the order, either rejecting or allowing the application, though in cases where appeals are allowed, then they are allowed to raise the very same point before the appellate court, wherein the main decree or the judgment is under appeal. Therefore, they will have a chance to urge their point once over again, because it is urged before the review court, and the review court did not entertain that objection. Either it is rejected or it is allowed. But though it has not been taken in appeal, or though it has become final, that review order, it can be taken up in the appeal. That those grounds can be urged in the appeal filed against the main judgment. Therefore, there is one chance for the left to the party who is aggrieved by the order passed by the court which passed the decree by way of review. And if a review application is dismissed for default, it can be restored. This review application, if dismissed for default, for the default of appearance of the applicant, then it can be restored to file by under order 9 rule 9 or 13 CPC. Then I will come to it later. But anyway, it can be restored to file by filing a proper application. And next topic is revision. Revision is provided under section 115. Revision is also an important topic in the CPC. Revision means the court will revise. The High Court will revise in the civil court or in the civil proceedings. High Court is the revising authority. But originally, this power was conferred on the High Court by section 115. But by a recent amendment, or not a recent, an amendment introduced in 2002, the power of revision under section 115 has been so much restricted. We can even say the power has been reduced to nil, except for certain instances. The High Court has no power at all under section 115. By way of an amendment that was introduced on 1/7/2002, though section 115 is there in the statute book, in the CPC, the power of the High Court under that particular section is very reduced to almost nil, except for certain occasions wherein we can exercise that power of revision. But anyway, you have to understand the parameters within which the High Court will entertain an application for revision, or under what circumstances the High Court will entertain an application for revision. it is a major point. You have to take it down because it will be useful for appreciating the power of revision by the High Court, not only under section 150, but also in respect of jurisdiction that will be exercised by the High Court. If by High Court, that power has been conferred under so many other enactments. I will come to it a little later. But now, for understanding section 115 regarding revision, you have to take into account, or you have to take note of the fact that there are three parameters, main parameters, which you have to always keep it in mind. That is, the High Court may call for the records, but the power of High Court is, it will call for the very proceedings before the lower court, where the case is pending. Because it is a power, a plenary power has been given to the High Court for recalling the very bundle or very case from the court and decide it for itself. Under what circumstances? Which has been decided by any court. The High Court may call for the records of any case which has been decided by any court, subordinate to such High Court, subordinate to High Court, and in which no appeal lies thereto. And if such subordinate court appears, therefore, if an order has been passed by a lower court and against which there is no appeal provided, then in those cases, the court will call for those records to see or under what circumstances it is given. If it appears to the High Court that the court which dealt with the case appears to have exercised a jurisdiction not vested in it by law. This is one point. If it has exercised a jurisdiction not vested in it, this is one. Second point is, it has failed to exercise a jurisdiction which is vested in it. Therefore, the first case is, there is jurisdiction not vested. In the second case, there is jurisdiction but failed to exercise. Therefore, two is, there is no jurisdiction, but it has taken upon a jurisdiction and decided a case. Therefore, a jurisdiction not vested in it, and a jurisdiction vested in it, but exercising differently. Exercising a jurisdiction, exercising a jurisdiction not vested in it, and failing to exercise a jurisdiction vested in it. This is second point. Then, even in cases where jurisdiction is vested, the court will act in excess, or the court will act illegally, or court will commit material irregularity in exercising that power. Therefore, in cases where jurisdiction is vested, some court may fail to exercise that jurisdiction, that it will give a ground, provide a ground for revision. And very same topic, that is the jurisdiction is conferred. Even in cases where jurisdiction is conferred, the court will exercise that jurisdiction, but illegally, but with material irregularity. In those three cases, the High Court will always interfere and nullify that order by way of revision. Therefore, these three principles you have to always keep it in mind. It will be applicable to revision, exercisable by the court, not only under section 115, but under different sections or under various provisions of law provided under various other statutes. But principle is always same. Then I said an amendment has been introduced on 1/7/2002, restricting the power of the High Court to entertain an application for revision under section 150. Of course, there are three parameters, but one is only such of those cases. What are the orders against which the High Court will exercise its jurisdiction under section 115 for revision? Only those orders by reason of which the very suit will come to an end, or the very suit is disposed of after the disposal of the application. In that case, then the resultant consequences, if there is no suit, or if the suit is decreed, there will be no suit pending, or that suit is disposed of by reason of the order passed interlocutory in an application. Then, in respect of those orders, the High Court is vested with the power to revise it under section 115. Therefore, this is only major provision or circumstances under which the High Court is empowered to revise the order of the lower court under section 115. Therefore, this is the one by reason of which or by reason of an order passed by a lower court, as a result of which the very suit is disposed of, either dismissed or allowed, then the court will entertain an application for revision. Then this is reported in, a case is reported, 2007, 8 MLJ, page 55. And once an application for revision is entertained, it will not amount to stay of the very proceedings. Therefore, the order will operate unless it is specifically stated by the High Court while entertaining an application for revision. Therefore, you have to apply for stay and get the stay order. Otherwise, it will not be deemed as if the order passed by the lower court is stayed. Therefore, then as I said to you, 115, it is restricted. The power of the High Court is restricted. But whenever there is no appeal provision, and whenever there is no revisional provision, or there is no provision for revision or appeal, the High Court under 115 can entertain an application for review. That is restricted. Because restricted in the sense only in respect of an order by reason of which the very suit is disposed of, that can alone be taken in revision under 115. But it is not as if the High Court has been denied the power of revision. You know that High Court is having power of superintendence over all the subordinate courts in Tamil Nadu. Say, for example, Madras High Court is having the power of superintendence over all the subordinate courts in Tamil Nadu. Therefore, it has ample power. But when that power is restricted under section 150 in the revisional jurisdiction, it is not as if you should not understand or you should not assume as if the power of revision on the High Court is now completely taken away. It is not so. But for revision, the High Court has another power, that is Article 226 of the Constitution of India, and more particularly, Article 227 of the Constitution of India. Article 227 of the Constitution of India is similar to the revision provision under section 150. But under 227, the High Court is enjoying more power than the High Court under section, than the power which the High Court exercises under section 150. Therefore, 227, the very same parameter, but it can review all the orders. It can revise all the orders if there is no appeal or revision. Therefore, when the High Court order, the High Court power is intact. It is not interfered with. The relevant case law on this topic is 2010 2 CTC 636. 2010 2 CTC 636. And another case law on the very same topic is 2009 5 SEC 162. And also one more aspect is the Tamil Nadu Building and Lease and Rent Control Act. That also provides for revision to the High Court. After the first appellate authority passed an order either confirming or reversing an order of the rent control, there is an appeal provision even under the Act. That Act is now not in force, but it has been substituted by another recently enacted Act. Now, originally under the 1960 Act, Section 20 provided for revision to the High Court, but it is a revision provided under a different statute. Here, that revision is not subjected to the restriction that we find in Section 116. Therefore, that revision has that revision. In that revision, the High Court is enjoying more power than the restricted power under Section 116. But even in that Act, though that revision is provided for, it is not restricted by Section 115. it has more power, but it has no power of an appeal. There was more power than the power conferred under section 150 and also lesser power than an appellate court possesses. Therefore, in between the court, because it is a summary proceeding, the Rent Control Act provides for only a summary proceedings, not an elaborate proceedings as we see in a civil court. Therefore, whenever a summary proceeding is initiated, the High Court, though it is having power under that particular provision of law, it can exercise the power, but that power is slightly larger and also slightly lesser than the appellate power. Therefore, you have to understand that. That is reported in 2002 1 CTC 631. And likewise, as I have said, one more instance. Suppose there is a provision, but there is a suit called under chapter suit that is dealt with in section, order 37. Under order 37, one can file a suit for a quick disposal of the case and also for a quick relief. But it will not be subjected to the lengthy procedure adopted by the regular courts. Here, this is called a summary suit or summary proceedings. In summary proceedings that is provided under section 37, if a suit is filed for recovery of money, that is only for recovery of money, this under chapter suit can be filed. They either on the basis of undis, promissory notes, and also even check. In these type of cases, where recovery of money is the suit can be very easily disposed of by even seeing the security or the promissory note and also the loan agreement. If a money decree can be decreed, money decree can be passed without a lengthy procedure, one can opt for that under chapter suit. If in that under chapter suit, there is a provision which requires the defendant to get leave of the court to file a written statement. Unless you obtain a leave from the court, then you cannot file a written statement. If the leave is rejected, then the suit will automatically be decreed. Therefore, in those cases, if an application is filed, suppose an application is filed for leave to defend or leave to file written statement, that is rejected. Here, against the order of rejection, one can file always a revision under section 150. The reasoning given by the Supreme Court is that power has been given in respect of orders that will put an end to the pendency of the case. Here also, once an application for leave to defend is rejected, automatically the suit will be decreed. Therefore, the suit is disposed of. The suit will not be pending. Therefore, the court taking that analogy come to the conclusion that it is an order which has disposed of the case, by reason of which the case is disposed of. There, section 150 is can be taken advantage of by filing an appeal. This is also reported in, kindly take note, 2013 3 CTC 305, and also set aside, condone the delay. Another instance I will give you. Condone the delay in filing an application for setting aside an ex parte decree. But you know, in respect of ex parte decrees, directly appeal is allowed. If the trial court passes an ex parte decree, first appeal is possible. And if a first appellate court passes an ex parte order, then also second appeal is allowed. Therefore, it's an appealable decree. But in cases where we could not file an application within 30 days to set aside those ex parte decrees, then it will become final. But an application can be filed under Order 9, Rule 13 or Rule 9. An application can be filed for setting aside that ex parte decree. If that ex parte decree, if that application for condoning the day in application for setting aside is rejected, what will be the end result? The result will be the decree, the ex parte decree will become final. That means the order already passed by the court will bring an end to the very pendency of the case. Therefore, the Supreme Court treated it as if it is an order by reason of which that case has been disposed of. Therefore, only a revision is possible. We can file an application under section 115 of CPC by way of a revision. This is the analogy. And also rejection of plaints. You might have come across the provision for rejection of plaint under Order 7, Rule 11 of CPC. As and when a suit is filed, the defendant on receipt of the plaint, he can always move an application if there is no case made out, or if there is no cause of action, or for various reasons given under that particular order, can file an application for rejecting the plaint. If rejecting the plaint application is allowed, of course, it will bring an end to the pendency of the case. The case will be dismissed. But here, you cannot file a review. Why this difference is? The court has treated and a rejection of plaint under Order 7, Rule 11 is a decree. If it is a decree, then automatically only appeal is allowed. Therefore, rejection of plaint is not revisable, but it is only appealable because it decides the list, the dispute between the parties, and renders a verdict in respect of the right of the party. It decides the right of the parties by rejecting a plaint. Therefore, it is appealable. Therefore, no revision under 150 CPC is permitted.